Welcome to another episode of the Loadout Music Podcast, featuring in-depth interviews with a wide range of music personalities, from Rock and Roll Hall of Famers to Grammy winners and today's rising stars. Recorded in St. Louis, Missouri, now here's your host, Aaron Perlut of Atomic Junction.
Welcome back to the Loadout Music Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Perlut. Our guest today originally hails from the Rhubarb Pie Capital of the world in Washington State, but now plays out of Nashville. She's seen as a dynamic up-and-coming artist, and we welcome Amelia Day to the Loadout Music Podcast. Amelia, great to have you on.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's funny. I spent a lot of time listening to the music you have on streaming services, and I want to get to that eventually. But it's very the dichotomy from one to the other is pretty remarkable, in that. You could have something very much on the kind of the jazz end of things, and a lot of your new music gets a little more rock and roll-ish. But first, I always like to understand where all this kind of comes from. I knew you grew up in Washington State, and I guess you got to start off with what the hell's up with the Rhubarb Capital of the world? Tell us. What would it?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea who gave Sumner that title, but one of those things we have this, it's a very small town, I think for most of my upbringing, less than 10,000 people. And we, every summer would have this little mini rhubarb festival, which is basically just the downtown area. A bunch of vendors have rhubarb stuff, and there's a lot of, classic little kind of farmers market stuff where it's homemade soaps and produce and all that. And so that became a very big thing in my town. And I got to play at the Rhubarb Festival a few years back.
That's cool.
I made,
Well, festivals are kind of that next leg up, that next evolution from coffee shop, bar, club, festival.
So big deal for me that I was Rhubarb Festival downtown, grew up going there, since I was 5. I was I've made it,
Now, where geographically is Sumner within the state? Is it near, say, Seattle? Is it on the other side of the state, near Idaho? Where are we talking about?
Sumner's an hour south of Seattle. So okay. Very much in Washington, similar kind of weather and stuff. So it's pretty close to maybe 20, 25 minutes from Tacoma.
Gotcha. So what was your kind of gateway drug into music? A lot of people, it's church, it's family. But then sometimes you'll find that someone discovered music in high school. They had a music teacher or something like that, or it's just they start singing and annoying the shit out of everyone. What got you into it?
My parents are both just love listening to music all the time, a wide variety of stuff. And so that was something I grew up around. And both of them took piano lessons as kids and stuff. And so we have this upright piano in the house. But neither of them are, they're both intermediate kind of pianists and stuff. But as a kid, I'd hear them, occasionally sit down at the piano and play one or two of the pieces that they'd learned as kids. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So I think when I was 4 or 5, I was can I take piano lessons? And I started doing that, and things just kind of grew from there.
See, and in the case of my children, and I've got a son who's about your age, my wife told them, there's only one thing I'm going to force you to do, and that is you have to take piano lessons until you're out of the house and you go away to school. And so from age 4 to 18, they once a week, 30 minutes, they were taking a piano lesson, and they had no choice.
That was kind of my brother's situation with it. Getting a couple years into lessons, I was I hate practicing. I don't know if I want to do it. They were no, you stick with it. You keep doing it, Yeah. And so, but yeah, it's kind of funny. Most most of my friends who've taken piano lessons, it's like their parents, started them on it or had them, start, which I think is awesome because piano is kind of I feel like it's the easiest jumping off point for almost any other instrument because it's just, everything's just laid out right in front of you, all in half steps. But yeah, I was like, I actually want to try this thing and learn how to make sounds that's more than just me just messing around.
What was the point where you realized, you start taking piano lessons? There must be a point where in your head you're like, this could be something. This could be what I want to do. I don't want to be a firefighter or a karate instructor or a sous chef, but it's music for me. What was that?
Oh man, gosh, it's hard to really pinpoint, honestly. I think like probably I've always like wanted to be a musician in some way. Probably in middle school, like I started like songwriting for the first time. I did like little compositions in elementary school, but started like actually songwriting in kind of the way that I do now in middle school. Lots of angst and emotions to get out. And I was just like, oh, I just really want to write and record music so badly. But I had really bad stage fright for a long time. And so I didn't like envision myself like on tour or on a stage really, or I was just like, if I could possibly just like write and produce and record and like never tour, never have to play in front of people, I was like, that'd be the dream. That'd be awesome. Yeah, I didn't really like believe being a full-time musician was possible at this point until like even like midway through college, like I always wanted to be a musician, but I kind of put a lot of caveats on it, or like, well, that's what I would love to do, but like realistically, what can I actually, do full time until maybe that takes off, or it's not the most practical thing in the world, obviously.
Well, do you think, you talked about kind of that middle school angst, and all of us have it. The people who say they don't have it, they're just liars. And it
Totally.
does, it always does make for great songwriting fodder. But do you think whatever was driving that angst was also kind of still in the back of your mind, kind of an insecurity that made you feel like, yeah, this is great, but maybe, I can't put all my eggs in this basket because, it's like, yeah, like a pro, a kid who wants to be a pro football player, or my other son who wants to be a Broadway performer. I mean, there's always something back there that's telling you, I can't really do this, or a shitty parent.
Well, I'm lucky to have very, very supportive parents. And so a lot of it was just, yeah, this internal thing of like, I don't know anyone who's a professional musician. I have no idea what that looks like. And, everybody tells you just like, yeah, it's like this super rare thing to become a full-time musician, to like, there's no kind of education on like what that pathway would look like, especially if it's like not classical or not like traditional jazz kind of stuff. And so I just like didn't even know how that was possible or how to even start with any of that. And so yeah, the more that I learned about like how to do that living in Nashville, I was like, oh, this might. I started like believe in the
You saw
possibility
you saw a
more.
path.
Yeah, yeah. But definitely I like was I hoped my plan for a while was like, okay, I'm gonna like have a very, very practical job, like right out of college and like save up enough money to eventually like try to do this thing, even if I'm not making anything off of it. But it is something that I've realized like, man, if you want to be a professional musician, like you just kind of got to go all in from the get go and like, have that coffee shop job, have the, because those are the ones that actually give you the flexibility to do what you need to do.
Yeah. Um, so beyond the grunge era, not a whole lot of particularly female artists that have really come out of state of Washington, with one exception. who I believe is one of the most, transformative artists of this generation, and will be someone who's spoken about, 30, 50 years from now. And that's Brandi Carlile. And I know there's been some people have drawn some comparisons to her songwriting with yours, which I think is, very unfair. But was she someone that you really idolized because she was right there and doing huge things as you were growing up?
What's funny is I was aware of her music and like had, a couple of friends who would listen and stuff, but I, as a kid, like, growing up in the church and stuff, like I was kind of disconnected from like a lot of just mainstream music for a while, and like honestly like the queer community as well for a while. And so even though like Brandy lives like 40 minutes from where I grew up, and grew up in the exact same area, is a like lesbian folk artist from Washington, like all of these tie-ins. Like I honestly didn't really like dive into her music until college. Like, and once I did, I was like, oh my God, what have I been missing out on this entire time? But yeah, I've gotten a chance to see her live once, and I would love to see her live more, obviously. But I mean, it's just a transcendental experience. Her stage presence is incredible. Her voice, obviously, like, it's just one of the most magical voices that I've ever heard live. Like, it's just one that you trust completely. Like, she's gonna do exactly whatever she is attempting to do with complete precision and emotion and tone and clarity. It's just, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and she is. It's interesting. You mentioned uh, her impact on the queer community has been huge because she's really become, a very visible icon for the queer community. And I love kind of everything she's done, just not only with music and that, I read her biography, which I thought was terrific. And I love the fact that she, titled it based on something that one of her kids had said to her. But I actually think the song, I believe Broken Horses is it's one of my, everybody's got these desert island songs that they would take with them on a desert island. That's for me, that's one of them. But she's a remarkable songwriter, just a terrific musician. She has a interesting little community she's built where she lives. But it's fascinating to me that she really wasn't that much on your radar growing up.
Which is crazy because I've had like a decent amount of conversations with people who are like, oh man, like you must have listened to Brandy all the time growing up. And I was like, I wish I could say that was the case, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know how that didn't happen. But truly, like, yeah, just like discovering her music on a deeper level wasn't until honestly when I was songwriting a lot more. And so, like, I'm almost kind of, I wish I had discovered her music earlier, but that on another level, it's like when I did, it was like exactly when I needed it. And so, like, yeah, she's definitely been huge inspiration for me as I've like really started diving into performing and putting myself out more, and just like as a performer, especially, she's just such an inspiration. Like, it really is. I was like taking so many mental notes, like watching her live, like, oh my God, this is just incredible.
And so you end up going almost all the way across the country to Vanderbilt, which to me is an interesting choice because Vanderbilt really isn't thought of as kind of a music school. Belmont is.
Yes.
Vanderbilt's more of a teaching college. I mean, that's one of their largest teaching and business. But you're also in Nashville. There's the songwriting community there, which I recently got a taste of at a deeper level that I'd never had. And it's kind of weird to me in that if you kind of venture into the songwriting community and you don't fully embrace working within the confines of it, that
Yes.
somehow you're ousted because you have to use songwriters. You're not supposed to write your own stuff, or you've got to go write for someone else. Um, so what happens to you in terms of your progression into becoming a professional musician as you move to Nashville for college?
Yeah. So what you mentioned is very much the case with Vanderbilt. Like there is like a mini like music school within the larger school, but it's very, very classical. Like it's just classical traditional jazz. There's like hardly any education on anything contemporary. Like I have a lot of thoughts on it, you know, especially just having been in the school. It's like, man, like Belmont has all of these. I have a ton of friends from Belmont. Like a couple of members of my backing band that I regularly tour with are from Belmont, and people that I met out in kind of the house show community, a lot of the like small local venues that all the college kids played at. But yeah, just at Vanderbilt, like we had one music business class, and it was taught by a very, very knowledgeable, but like, you know, man in his like mid 70s, you know. So what the industry was that he was talking about was what it
Didn't
was
exist
like.
anymore. Doesn't exist.
Yeah, talking about a lot of like union session musicians and legal stuff was still pretty accurate because it has not evolved nearly as quickly as the industry has, obviously. And there's a lot of issues with that. But yeah, I mean, it was like he hardly talked about streaming or socials or things that are so central to how the industry operates today. And so it was like I really had to kind of seek that stuff out and like just get involved with the local just like college music scene, meet a lot of people from Belmont, from Lipscomb, from just all the neighboring colleges, go to a ton of house shows, and just kind of get embedded in the local community just on more of a DIY level, and just talk to people, as awkward as it can sometimes feel. Like it's yeah, just the more that you meet people, the more that you go to their shows, you know, the more, you know, they might invite you to, hey, can you play an opening set for this gig I've got next weekend? And then you meet more people and it just kind of grows slowly, but like steadily from there. And yeah, as a student, it's really nice. Like a lot of industry people will just like actually grab coffee with you just purely out of just like, hey, I want to learn. I don't know what's going on in this industry. It's so opaque. It's so difficult to like find accurate information. Everybody's saying a million different things online. Like, what do you actually do as your job as A&R here or blank, blank, blank. So yeah, grabbed a lot of coffee with people locally.
Yeah.
And yeah, being in Nashville was one of the best decisions that I've made for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, at what point do you kind of take the dive and start functioning as a professional musician? What's the progression there from full-time student to going on the road with some guys from that you know from Belmont and playing house shows? What is that? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, totally. Definitely like it was a very step-by-step kind of process. Like started out with like open mics and like farmers markets, tons of farmers markets. Like that's truly like honestly where I feel like I've learned the most is just like playing a ridiculous amount of like solo hours long gigs. No one's listening because no one's there. Like tiny little
Been there. We've all been there, right?
10 booth farmers market where like maybe there's like 50 people who throughout the 2 hours are what, you know, stuff like that. But it's like just kind of putting it all in regardless of who's there and like learning like what catches people's attention, what doesn't, what songs feel more comfortable in different spaces, how to banter with different kinds of people, just meeting all kinds of people. So I would like go home every summer back to Washington and just like gig a ton. At the same time as like for I think most of the summers working at a restaurant locally as well. And so yeah, it started out with like a lot of farmers markets and then built into okay, I'm playing like a solo gig at these breweries and wineries and now at this like smaller local venue, and then now like I've met more local musicians, so we're gonna play a show at a venue together for the first time and open for this person, and just kind of building from there. But it really was like for a while through school, because like, I can't just like take 2 weeks off in the middle of the semester without needing to redo that semester.
Yeah.
It's just like whenever I had a pocket of time to like travel and play shows, it was like, okay, I've got like a few weeks over winter break. I'm going to try to play as much as I can during that period of time. Or like, okay, here's spring break. I'm going to like fly back to Washington and like play a show in Seattle while I have the time. And so that's like what it was for a good bit. And then kind of like the like half of the year following graduation, I was still like working some part-time stuff, but was making a decent amount of like part-time income off of music. Because like streaming stuff had started taking off at that point. I was playing a decent amount of shows, but yeah, only in the last like year to year and a half has it been like, I'm honestly in the last year has been full time. This is my like only job, my one thing, that I'm making income off of and able to pay rent and pay for food and all that stuff.
So being in Nashville when you weren't going home for the summers, being in Nashville, I've talked to bookers there at along kind of the Broadway where you've got all the big party bars or what have you, and they all talk to you about how you've got to play covers, you've got a remarkable amount of covers, and you have to be able to be really good at taking requests. Was that something that you embraced, or is that something that you ultimately tried to avoid and just find your own places to play that where maybe you didn't have to do that?
I definitely embraced playing a lot of covers, for sure. But what was great with a lot of Washington bars and wineries and stuff is like people did actually want to hear the original stuff too. Like you catch their attention with a cover with something
In
familiar.
Washington.
Like, yes, in Washington
But
specifically.
what about Nashville though?
Covers just across the way. If you're playing any kind of like bar gig in Nashville, like you're going to be playing pretty much exclusive. Like they don't want you to play your original
Yeah.
stuff because that's like you're serving a particular function for tourists coming to the bar, kind of fulfilling what the idea of Nashville is. And if they want to see originals, they'll go to a writer's round or they'll go to like something specific that's the Nashville songwriting culture or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is definitely like unless you are playing your own gig where it's your name, you're kind of bearing the brunt of production costs, whatever it may be. Like if you're just playing at a bar, like you're gonna play whatever they want you to play, pretty much.
Did that piss you off?
It's definitely frustrating. It's frustrating. And I didn't play a ton of those gigs, honestly.
Yeah.
Less so because like I don't have an issue playing covers. I love playing covers, honestly. But alongside playing originals. But it is one of those things I don't feel as if like I've had a lot of friends be like super involved in the bar scene in Nashville, and there's just really not any kind of upward trajectory there because people aren't there like the people who are there are often going to be tourists who are just looking for like the Nashville like country vibe and expand. They're not necessarily looking to like discover a new artist or like really get invested in whoever's up there on stage. It's like meant to be kind of background music to an extent. And so, yeah, and there's just no kind of way to grow out of that directly from the bars. It's a great place to gain experience, to actually be able to make some money off of music. But as far as like actually getting your name out there, like it's not, it doesn't do too much from what I've seen.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your original music. So I know that, as I mentioned in the open, the dichotomy of what you play is so diverse to me and in a very interesting way because for instance, I think it's Skipping Down the Sidewalk is probably your most listened to or streamed song on Apple. But that's very different than if you go to say Love Me, Love Me Not or Lady Los Angeles. And so it kind of goes from an Amy Winehouse feel with like real jazz intonations and notes to, to kind of like a banger that you might hear from like Heart or somebody, and everything in between. So talk a little bit about that. I mean, I don't want to say all over the place because I mean this. I mean this actually with great. Like Ben Harper does this. Ben Harper has albums where he'll have five different styles. But talk a little bit about what I know. You're getting ready to you've got the new record out, Ego Trip. But as you've released EPs and singles, talk a little bit about the diverse nature of the music you've been putting out.
Oh my God, absolutely. Oh my God, I just listen to so many different styles and like have such a deep appreciation for like for I mean folk music and folk rock and just like straight ahead classic rock stuff. I love jazz. I studied some jazz while I was in college, and like just love the warmth of vocal jazz and like just kind of bringing in some of those like improvisational elements into different styles. And so yeah, it's just always, I'll never like necessarily set out like, I'm going to make a song that's like Noah Kahn vibes. And now I'll make a song that's like Amy Winehouse vibes, or like rarely is that kind of a thought in my head as much as just like, this is the concept I have going in, or like, here's some chords I'm playing around with. And like this vibe just seems to fit this kind of genre and this feel, and it just kind of builds naturally from there. It's like whatever fits what I'm trying to express the best, you know? And usually, like, obviously, whatever I'm listening to at the moment is going to influence what I'm writing at that moment. But I just listen to so much stuff across the board. I don't even know if I'd say I have like a favorite genre to listen to. And so it just kind of like naturally seeps its way into music, where I think like if I were to just like go straight ahead with just folk rock, that's all that I'm gonna do. Like I would have to say goodbye to it. Like I'd still be writing other stuff, like just naturally, but I would have to just cut that out completely. And it's like I like those songs too much to not include them and to not incorporate them. And so with projects that I put together, especially with this next one, Ego Trip, this one's definitely the most like sonically cohesive project, but less so I'm kind of approaching it from a different mode rather than like genre consistency, like more just instrumental and production kind of tying elements. Like there's pedal steel on almost every track, but like in very different ways. There's cello on almost every track, but in some it is like this, very swooping, almost orchestral feel. Whereas in others, like it's digging in almost like in a deeper, like more full-bodied, rich guitar kind of sound. Like we threw some distortion on the cello, like threw it through another amp, like and like kind of mix the pure cello sound with that distorted cello in like some parts and some of the rock songs, like just using a similar toolkit, I guess, but just in very different ways. And then obviously like just this lyrical kind of consistency, thematic consistency, kind of having a concept behind the stuff. But yeah, that's something like I've had people, like industry people in the past, or like, manager who was interested in working with me, like kind of push back against that a bit and be like, well, you kind of, to market something, it is easier if you have one very specific thing that you're able to kind of have as a catch-all. This is what I am, what I'm doing. And I've always like kind of fought against that. And then like, am I being stupid on a business level for doing this? But I have found like just talking with people, like they really like that there's that much variety and that every song really is its own world and its own, like I'm trying to just like serve each song the best it can, even if that brings me into a different kind of space, I guess. It's what I love to listen.
I would imagine, I could see it from both angles in that as an artist, I could see it being incredibly fulfilling.
Yes.
Because to your point about like serving each song the best you can. But for someone trying to, whether it's reaching an audience or appealing to a record label, because a record label wants you to be in a vertical. They want to know, they want to be able to call you something, you know,
Mhm.
like, I think of, I still love Mary Chapin Carpenter,
Yeah.
and
Oh my God.
they put Mary Chapin Carpenter in country, and she is not, never was, never will be a country artist. She's kind of a folk artist, really. When you listen to her entire catalog, but they put her in country. She made a ton of money in the '90s on country, and God bless her. Um, but uh, but it's hard, I think, for a record company, and then it can be hard also to build an audience because an audience is looking for a genre to a degree, unless you've already kind of built that relationship,
Hmm.
or you're finding your audience, one by one or group by group, and they're like understand that's what they expect from this artist.
Yeah, it's definitely a it's more risky for sure. Like, and it's less of a, like, on the marketing side, it is kind of a conundrum of it where, like, it's like, okay, we're so used to defining things by genre, by this specific kind of category. How do you build a brand or a general, like, musical identity that people, you use one sentence to describe it, boom, people understand what it is. Yeah, it's tough to kind of figure out, okay, what's the glue between all of this that, like, people are resonating with it. Because I have, people who will find me from, like, a very, like, indie folk song, but genuinely love and, like, stick around for, like, the soul pop stuff, and, like, when I lean more into funk or into rock, like, it's like, okay, so what is the tying thing together that is making it so that, this is all under one umbrella? Like, how do you describe that? It's definitely been a kind of tough little puzzle with stuff, but
Yeah.
it's something important to me, like, which is why, in part, that I haven't signed with the label yet. I've had some conversations, both just, like, there hasn't been, like, a solid enough offer, but also, like, I care a lot about having a lot of agency over what I'm putting out, what I'm creating, even if it doesn't seem the most marketable, because it's just, at the end of the day, it's art,
Yeah.
versus, and that's the most important thing over any money or views or anything. And I like, do have this core belief, for better or for worse, like, if you're putting out the things that you're most passionate about, that are most authentically you, it's something only you can create. And people, like, if you're trying to be, I don't know. I just had, like, a potential manager be like, "Oh, you should write more like Noah Khan kind of stuff. You should try to, like, lean into that more." And, like, it's like, if you're trying to create something, like, that is, you know, a cookie cutter version of, like, another artist, it's just gonna be a worse version of that artist's music. It's like,
Yeah.
people, if I'm trying to write a Noah Khan song, people should go just listen to Noah Khan. It'll be better than whatever my attempt is at writing his kind of music.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I kind of, like, we each have these unique things that we bring to the table, and so, like, why not just try to lean into that as much as possible? Easier said than done, of course, but yeah, that's kind of my philosophy with it, at least. But
Yeah.
it's tough.
And so you take someone like a Billie Eilish who has really created her own lane, but it's been, I think, been fairly consistent, that lane.
Yeah.
She's created her own lane and still been able to appeal to mass audiences. I think, one artist that I can think of that's really done a nice job of doing exactly what you're talking about is Norah Jones, because
Mm.
Norah Jones stylistically uh, can be all over the place. She can be very jazzy, very bluesy. She can be a little country. She can be a little poppy, but she doesn't, but it's still
It's
Norah
different.
Jones. It's the Norah Jones brand.
I freaking love Norah Jones. Like, speaking on musical inspirations, like, oh my God, just such a good artist in all respects. I mean, and obviously her voice is just, like, the warmest, like, most honeyed quality. Like, it's just, yeah. If I want to be put in a good mood and, like, a peaceful, relaxing, like, I'm throwing on some Norah Jones every time.
Well, talk a little bit about the new record, or really it's an EP,
Yeah.
Ego Trip. I know it's a very personal project for you, and I've listened to Lady Los Angeles, um, which kind of deals with betrayal after infidelity. But uh, talk a little bit about the record and what you're trying to achieve with it.
Yeah, there's it's definitely my most like I feel like in a lot of my music I tend to kind of lean into storytelling, into like speaking above things in like in metaphors rather than like this is directly what happened, how I'm feeling in like a very it's hard to I find it like especially hard to write in such a direct way in a way that still feels unique and impactful. Like that still feels like it's a different way of saying things, that it hits people in a way they may not have thought of, but being like a lot more direct and a lot more like literal and openly vulnerable about stuff. But yeah, this I yeah went through a really difficult and unexpected breakup, and am definitely have lost like a lot of naivety through that. I think for better in general, but definitely like shifted my perspective on just the world and people in general, and like I really love who I have become coming out of it. But it was kind of this like almost like rebirth process of like really having to start figuring things out from a very different perspective now coming out of it. And so like I'm not a very angry person by nature, and like if I am mad about something, usually like I'll be mad about it for like at tops probably like an hour, and then I'll like be chill. It's whatever. Like I just kind of will feel that emotion. Okay, cool. Now we're chill. Now we're just moving forward. And for like one of the first times, it was this really like deeply abiding, just like anger and frustration over just like, man, like I did not expect that kind of betrayal, and truly did not see it coming. Truly trusted that person, and it was very jarring. And I luckily at the same time like have been listening to a lot of like 90s rock stuff, a lot of like the female like angry like alternative rock of like Sheryl Crow, Alanis Morissette, Ani DeFranco, like Fiona Apple, and was experimenting a lot more with electric guitar at the time, so it all just kind of like fed into each other pretty naturally, where this project is definitely more in a rock direction, both just emotionally really tied in, but also just what I was listening to and what I was inspired by at the time. And so it's very much a project where it's kind of processing that heartbreak, and kind of follows me through that almost like grieving process of like bargaining and anger and depression, and eventually at the end like truly just acceptance of what happened, what is, and moving forward with what you've learned at that point.
And so, do these kind of sentiments pepper the entire EP?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, it kind of I kind of do a bit of a like whiplash thing between emotions as I was feeling them, where like you've got Ego Trip at the top, which is very, like one of the I'd say angrier kind of call out songs, but even within that song, like in the pre-chorus, there's this like very like 180 kind of switch to this like almost dream sequence kind of feel, where you've got like mellotron flutes and stuff, and it's this like remembrance of like I thought I knew like the good parts of this person, and the things that you trust in a relationship, and like kind of being thrown back into that, but then back into the reality of like, but this is what actually happened, and this is the truth of things. And so throughout the whole project, there's like I think yeah, Lady Los Angeles, we've got some of the more vulnerable like heartbroken parts, and then you've got like the bridge where it's just like screw you. Like, this sucks. This is awful. And then you've got Margie, which is almost like a kind of romanticizing the situation and the relationship, and a bit kind of like pining after this person, regardless of what happened. And yeah, there's just a lot of back and forth between the song and kind of replication of just like the whiplash of emotions that I was feeling just day to day, just confused, very confused.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Amanda Shire's most recent record, which was, kind of a kick in the junk to her ex Jason. But I mean, she let it all hang out throughout the entire record.
I need to listen to it. I haven't heard her newest record yet, so that definitely I will be. I mean, I'm driving a lot coming up here, so.
So what is next for you? I imagine you're going to be spending a lot of time on the road.
Yes, yeah. This year has been like, I mean, honestly, even from like October of last year through now, it's been like pretty much near constantly, like at least every weekend, pretty much having shows, or I had a run of shows where it was like a month and a half almost straight, just like on the road with my band for the first time, and like going up in Northeast and Midwest and the South, and just, yeah, it's been crazy busy, so much fun, but also like I am excited for things are like slowing down a little bit in the live scene, like over the next few months, even though I still have a decent bit of shows, but I'm looking forward to like really having some time to like, okay, just went through a whirlwind of so many different awesome experiences, like kind of want to sit and like process some of that and hopefully, create something out of that. So, but you need time to do so, and time to sit with it. That's kind of the plan.
So, Amelia, what have we missed here? I think it sounds like we've kind of
covered a lot of the bases. Yeah,
we've covered the bases. All right, Amelia Day. You can stream your music anywhere. Find you on all the socials. I imagine. I bet you it's pretty easy to Google and find you online. Thank you so much for being on the Load Out Music Podcast. It's been a real pleasure having you on.
Right back at you. Yeah, this has been a blast.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Load Out Music Podcast, hosted by Atomic Junction frontman Aaron Perlut. Find all of our episodes and more at loadoutmusic.com.